Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm starting a new tournament, the Maia Chess Festival. Actually, it started 2 days ago, but right now it's the only time I've been able to make the recap. Yesterday my game lasted like 5 hours and a half or something, and I was just really tired. So today I got around to it. This tournament is happening from the 21st to 29th of August. It happens every year. It's a relatively new tournament, just as well as the last tournament that I played a couple of weeks ago. They're both in Porto, in the north of Portugal, and yeah, they're fairly recent. In this tournament, actually, they invited me to stream this year, which is really fun. So this tournament is a bit more like a festival kind of event. So there's lots of streamers, like 15 or something. They went crazy with the number. And there's some actually really famous streamers. Like there's this guy, I think his name is Goofy Tushar or something, and some others. So they invited me, and I accepted because it's something different. It's fun, and so I'm streaming along with two other Portuguese guys, and we are broadcasting to all of our channels. So if you want to watch that, you can do it. We don't have commentary because, well, the logistics were a bit difficult, but we do have the cameras, like, looking at us during the games. So we have like the phones recording us. And yeah, I've never really done that before. So it's kind of exciting. But let's get on with the first round. So funny enough, I was playing this guy, Miguel Palacios from Spain. And in this tournament, in the previous year, I played the exact same guy on the first round with white as well. It's just a crazy coincidence. And last year I played knight of 3 and b3 against him and got a winning position in like 15 moves or something. But yeah, I like to switch it around, so I decided to go c4. But I got a worse position out of the opening like really quickly. So he played this system with knight c6 and f5. This is kind of tricky, and I don't know it well. So there's that. Okay, I went for d4 and then knight g5. I thought this was, standard, but already I believe after the game that knight e5 is probably a better move. It probably also has more games. Let me check that really quickly. No, knight g5 is the main move in terms of number of games, and then actually knight e5 is only like the fifth most popular move or something, but it's the top line of the engine. So, anyways, we go for this knight maneuver, which is quite typical. And he went g5. He was still in prep, and I was completely on my own here. I was completely on my own, and okay, but this is nice. Uh, this is a plus of playing any kind of new openings and stuff. You just get fresh, different positions instead of always getting the same theoretical lines over and over again. But I had to figure out things on my own. So I spent some time here and I decided to go for the move f3. Okay, I'm looking at this now with Stockfish because the position is so difficult. And dude, his best move is completely insane. He's suggesting bishop d2. I don't even know what this does at all, and I'm also giving up the pawn on d4. But okay. I mean, I mainly considered, knight g1 and things like this, but I just didn't like this at all because after some e3, knight f6, I can go h4 and stuff, but I couldn't really figure out if any of this was good for me or not. At the end of the day, my position is quite cramped, and, you know, I just feel like black has more space. I couldn't really see what I was doing here, so I went f3. Also a good move, but much riskier. So he trades and he goes f4 immediately as well. He was just playing a tempo, as they say. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't really understand what he was doing, but of course he was playing super quick, so it must have been preparation. Okay, I play bishop d3. It's the most natural move. And I didn't even understand what he wanted to do, but it turns out that he's just fine leaving the king out on f8. And actually, this isn't to my benefit at all. He's just going to kick me out and win a bunch of time. So instead, okay, d5 castles. Oh, here I actually missed a big chance, which I didn't consider at all. But d6 was really important. I mean, I did realize during the game that I was just worse here in this position that we got in the game. Like in this kind of situation, I'm just worse. Even though he's so overextended, I cannot capitalize, I cannot create an attack or anything like that. And positionally, I'm not doing so well. He's got all sorts of squares for his pieces. So it turns out that it was quite important here for me to go d6 and just give up the pawn, takes and castles and play this. Actually, quite instructive stuff. Okay, again, I didn't even remotely consider this. So instead, I castled, and we got to this position, bishop f1, where, yeah, I just realized that my position sucks, completely sucks. But, I was determined to make the best of it. He went knight g6, which surprised me quite a lot. I thought knight f5 was just better because one of my main ideas, well, one of my only ones as well, to create counterplay is to go knight b5, knight d4, and finally start to pounce on his weaknesses. But, if he has the knight on f5, then knight b5 doesn't do anything. But okay, he goes knight g6 and g4. This also makes a lot of sense. He's sacrificing a pawn, but and now he goes a6. I kind of missed this move. I was only considering f3, and eventually I came up with this move rook e4. I think this is a good defensive try. And yeah, I was considering this line that the computer also suggests. This was my the main line that I was considering. Check, king g1. And I wasn't sure about this position. Like anything could be happening. He can take with the knight. He can take with the bishop. But yeah, I was trying to figure this out. But mainly I was playing my moves, because they're kind of only moves in the sense that I was just playing the only things that made sense. For example, here after a6, I realized that after knight d4, he has some ideas that he played in the game with knight takes g4. But I don't really have an alternative. I mean, knight c3 is uh, just really bad because again, my only source of counterplay was this maneuver. So now he just has free roam to do whatever he wants. I'm just lost there. But I did put up a very good defensive try here with this idea of knight e6, and namely after knight takes f2. Now the only move for me is queen h5, and I managed to find this, and this was nice. Otherwise, I'm just busted because if I take on f2, the thing is my king is not coming back to g1 because he takes here, and then like bishop d4 check, and my king is just in shambles here. So queen h5 is important. He takes, and now I thought he was gonna go for something like queen g5, take, and for example, uh, let's say rook g6, knight e4, and I thought I was again. I mean, I thought my position still completely sucked, and it does. This is just a better endgame for black. I was trying to make this work as well, but I'm just down a clean pawn. So there's that. He goes knight h4 instead. Also very dangerous was queen h4, which is similar. And there were some ideas like this: knight g4, h3. He comes in, and I take, and I take, and yeah, you have to calculate all this out. But okay, he goes knight h4. I take. I was quite happy to see knight h4 because now he decided to do this before giving the check. But if he gives the check immediately, it's still king e2, and it's not so clear whose king is weaker here. Actually, I also have quite a lot of attacking power around his king. Okay, he goes for this first. Rook g5, queen h3, check, I played king e1 instead of king e2, uh, because I wanted to threaten to take the knight, but actually I'm not threatening anything because he still has a discovered check with rook e5. Um, but here the game is actually turning around because he's not being able to put more fire on the position, and I'm just playing bishop d3, unraveling my pieces, and he has a bunch of weaknesses. Okay, he decides to go rook e5, and he trades on e6. I thought queen g5 was the better move, and I was trying to calculate this. Now g3 is critical, but he's got a check. I can go king c2. I thought he would actually trade on g3. Yeah, check, and then trade on g3. Okay, I missed. I could take with the queen. So I was mostly considering this position. And I thought maybe I could, I would find something later. But again, I was moving, I wasn't playing that fast, but I was moving mostly on discarding the alternatives. But yeah, this queen takes g3 is kind of obvious and strong, and I'm just gonna win everything actually. So this didn't work for him. Okay, instead he traded, but here I was, you know, ecstatic with my position because all of a sudden I can go g3, take. I'm up a pawn. His king is super weak. I'm winning. Long story short, I'm just winning. Okay, I decided to keep the queens on here. I thought trading could be a little bit murky, like trades in king c2 and somehow like some knight h4 coming in. And I thought this maybe wasn't so simple. Um, this move is nice by the computer. I guess you cannot take because of rook b1 and some bishop c3 stuff. But queen g4 is a very practical move. He also was super low on time. I'm just threatening to win a knight. He goes h5, which I saw, but I believe these kinds of moves are very good practically. When you play this move, you have a clear threat. H5 is not the most obvious move ever. So it's like, it's a semi-bluff in the sense that I see that he's got a defense to my threat, but it's not an easy defense. And even if he finds it, I realize that Queen G4 is not a bad move for me. So it's not a gamble in the sense that I'm not risking worsening my position. It's just that maybe I had something slightly stronger, but I just play this move fast, put pressure on him, and even if he finds the correct defense, the position will still be tough. So these kinds of moves are good. Queen G3, King H8, Queen F3. This was a bit sloppy, but again, I was putting a lot of pressure on the clock. Maybe I believe he had like 1 minute or something around this point, and maybe I had like 20 minutes. This is a bit sloppy because of a fairly difficult resource for him, especially in time trouble. So he had to find Queen F5 now, only move. And what I realized is that if I go either Bishop D3 or Bishop H3, which seemed to wrap up the game actually, he's got a nice resource by taking advantage of this pin. So he can go, for example, 95. And okay, I can trade, but this endgame is not so bad. He's really active now. And if I don't want to trade, like queen somewhere, he's got knight g4, and he's even better now. So queen f5 would have been a nice shot. Instead, he collapsed, which is what happens when you're really low on the clock. Your king is wide open like this. You're down a pawn. I mean, a million things are wrong with his position, and you cannot defend like a machine. He collapses with this. I mean, this is clearly bad for black, but he thought that he wanted to take because if queen h7, his king is getting away, but he just missed queen g6 first, and then I made him. So here the game is just over. Okay, check, check, pick up the pawn, and he resigned. Okay, not a smooth first game, but I feel like I played. I mean, for example, after missing this chance with an early d6 here, I got a worse position and basically played the best moves for 20 moves in a row or something. I took my chances and capitalized when he started to go astray here. So pretty decent. Okay, the second game I decided to play some random crap, and I decided to play the Alekin with actually a friend of mine played it as well. We decided to play it to both play it, and our opponents went for the same line, which is this. I mean, in general, the thing with these dubious but surprising openings is that it's very rare that they really know it and are going to test you in the main line. I mean, from what I saw, clearly the best is the 4 pawns. And I was, in the back of my mind, like scared that he would know a lot of theory here. But again, the truth is that unless you're an extremely strong player, like at least GM, you're not going to have a lot of preparation against these random lines like the Alekhine. So you're probably going to get some sort of a playable position. I mean, this is still good for white, of course. This is still advantage. But okay, I prepared this idea with bishop f5. The main move here is knight c6 and then e5, or e5 straight away. I'm not sure actually. Bishop f5, and here something funny happened. I played knight c6 and like I blitzed it out, and immediately I realized that I screwed up because it's d5 first. It makes a huge difference because after knight c6, he is in time to go d5 himself. And I'm screwed actually, and this happened in the game because I cannot go knight e5 uh, because I'm gonna drop a piece after f4, knight d7 and g4. So I have to, or maybe I'm not losing a piece, but my position is terrible. So I had to start, making stuff up. But the line is d5, yeah? This is what I wanted to do. But already in the game, I was getting quite confused. I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do here. I mean, usually in these positions in the Alekhine, what you want to do is trade this knight, is trade this bishop for some minor piece, and then just set up with e6 and knight e7 and knight f5 and so on. But now this is not possible because my bishop is getting trapped. So yeah, this is also what happens when you don't have that much time to prepare. You play something, you play something risky you've never played before. But it's a gamble. I'm very much at ease with doing. It turns out that here the move is e5. You have to be super energetic here. e5, but yeah, takes knight c6. Give up all the pawns. But again, I didn't know this at all. Instead, I blundered here with knight there, and now knight f3. Okay, this move took me completely by surprise, and my opponent was burning a lot of time as well. So he's giving up an exchange and a pawn, both as a package. But here I took like some 20 minutes and I didn't go for it. I didn't pull the trigger because I couldn't make sense of this. I thought rook c2 was his best try. Take, knight b4. Now not queen c3 blunder because he's dropping this. And now the thing is that I have a rook and 3 pawns for 2 pieces. I'm completely winning here. But queen d2, I have to go a5. And he goes h4. And okay, we have this position simply. I couldn't, I was too afraid here of his attack. And the computer says this is zeros, as usual. But I'm kind of convinced that in a practical game, this would have been extremely difficult to defend. So I think it was a good decision not to take it, even though the computer says it's a blunder and that I should take. For example, here I briefly calculated that, okay, the main point, of course, is that my pieces are passive and are super far away from the action, and he's got like a bazillion pieces here, overpowering my king. I briefly thought about h5, then I just thought that he would go for something like, yeah, some g4, immediately takes, knight g5, and I'm getting steamrolled. So I ended up discarding the whole line because of this. Instead I went e6. Again, computer says it's a blunder. Understandably so, because I did realize during the game that my position here just sucked. But I was actually really proud of my next move here. So queen d2. And my pawns are so weak in the center, and even like my style of play in general is to keep things sort of under control. I don't mind aggressive positions, but usually I like to keep my king safe and my pawn structure kind of fluid. Here I'm just riddled with weaknesses. But this next idea that I came up with, I'm super proud of this, and it put him under tremendous pressure. He took some 40 minutes or 30 or something around here. So d5, completely dropping bishop c5, double attack, simple as that. Knight c6, and okay, the main line here is to take and take on d5. So this was my main point. When I realized that this was interesting and maybe playable, I was super happy. And again, my opponent took forever to play, and he didn't go for it. He was afraid of entering this. In my view, understandably so, but of course, like a really strong player would have probably called the bluff, let's say. Okay, I do have compensation, right? I do have compensation. I have the bishop pair, I have this pawn rolling down. My pieces are active. I have bishop h6 on the cards as well. Uh, and I ruled out knight takes d5 because I have rook d8 and some stuff. So eventually I thought that this was interesting. And again, my position was already dubious, so why not go for this? Again, I was really proud of this idea. Okay, he decided to trade and bail out by taking on b6. But now, of course, it's even more, um, it stands to reason that black is just doing completely fine here. Actually, I'm already better. Uh, I am dropping a pawn, but the bishop pair compensates tremendously here, and all the open files. Okay, so I went bishop e6, and he blundered with bishop c4. This was a kind of a weird blunder because it's extremely simple. Okay, I mainly consider rook d1, and I believe I was going for this move that the computer is recommending with rook e8. Point is, he cannot castle because I'm winning a piece. The bishop is dropping in the end. And, if he removes the knight or something, I can trade the queens, take on a2, and I'm happy as one can be. He blundered a piece here, a full piece with b5. I mean, he has this line where he gets the thing, he gets the rook for two pieces, but this is one of those positions where it's not even close. It's completely lost because the bishop pair and this pawn that remained on c3, impenetrable, is just is there's too many advantages. Okay, so you're probably thinking that I won the game in like 3 or 4 moves here. That's kind of what I was thinking during the game, but I managed to mess it up fairly quickly. So rook d8, bishop f5, blunder. Well, not strictly speaking, but I missed knight takes c3. Just a ridiculous blunder. And now if I take, he's going queen c4. And this is not as simple anymore. He's got two pawns for the two pieces. So I took some time, and maybe because I got hit with this and was, I guess, in some sort of shock, I missed the extremely obvious move that wins on the spot, which is bishop d3, because I I removed this idea of queen c4 and I just attack his rook, and that's all she wrote. Something like rook d1 I can take. Okay, there is one thing to calculate, but it's extremely simple. Take, check, queen d5, game over. He cannot take because there's mates. So I managed to miss that, which is really weird because I took like 7 minutes here or something, and I thought about all sorts of stuff: rook e5, bishop d4, knight d4, knight e5. Thought about so many moves. I ended up going queen b4. Okay. Luckily for me, this endgame is still extremely difficult and probably winning for black. So let me skip forward a couple of moves. Here I'm just trying to round up his pawn. Eventually he allows me to go into this endgame. And here's something funny happened again. Uh, I mean, you know, I wasn't 100% sure this was winning, but it's one of those positions that it just has to be. It has to be winning because the bishop pair in general in these endgames completely outclasses the rook. Okay, here I could have the simplest way I could have won was to give up the h7 pawn. I didn't do this because I wanted to, keep it safe. You never know. Now he's got a lot of pawns on the king side. Who knows if somehow he'll give up the rook for a pawn and a bishop or something. But the thing with this position is that the bishop pair is so good that he's probably not going to be able to get a bishop for the rook. He's probably going to have to sacrifice the rook entirely, and then it's a trivial win. But what I was saying that's funny is that we were on move 39, and I had like maybe some 15 minutes. He had one, and I was just trying to flag him. I mean, completely honest. I was just trying to flag him, and so I went h5 because okay, I'm trying to do the same idea but without giving up my pawns. And the problem is that when he played, he reached move 40 and got a whopping 30 minutes added to his clock, and that's a bit of a problem, yeah. So I forgot that we had increment on move 40. So now I realized that it was going to be another extremely difficult task to win this game. Okay, we get to this point. Around here, the position is very difficult to play. I went h4. Apparently, it's a mistake. g5 is the correct move. I mean, I was trying to reason this out over the board, trying to understand which move is better, and I just couldn't. I mean, honest to God, I couldn't understand. I realized that the position was too difficult, and I just, I decided to play on and see what happened. So we reached this position, right? Where, in the game, I was just unsure whether I could make progress and win, or if it was just going to be a draw. I came up with this idea. Okay, what I probably should have done is this, like king d7, and now let's say king c6, take, come back, and play this position. But I couldn't be sure. I just couldn't be sure at all. This pawn is not really gonna promote because his king is too close to it. At the same time, it's not easy for him to push his pawns. Like this one is not gonna promote on its own. And as soon as he goes g4, then h2 is gonna be weak. So the position is just a mess. Okay, I could have went for this, but I saw that I had something at least safer, and I decided to go for that. Okay, king c3 was weird. I mean, I was taking ages around here to play my moves. The only thing I considered, of course, was rook check, and this. Eventually, I was going for this weird move, and something really beautiful actually is happening in this position, which is that white is in some sort of zugzwang. Really pretty, in my opinion. Okay, so a couple of points. If like how can he wait? If king d3, uh, I can go bishop g4 and then give a check. If king e4, I can go bishop d1 and then give a check. If king c3 or king e3, he's allowing me to come in with a king. The only move that remains is rook g8. This allows king d7. By the way, I cannot take the pawn because he goes g4 and now he wins. He's gonna win all my pieces. But I can go around and we'll see what happens. Check, bishop e7, and yeah, I was gonna see what happens. Okay, instead he goes for this, kind of a weird move. Now my plan was to put the bishops like this and eventually round up the pawn. He comes around with the rook, comes in. Okay, I missed rook e5. Here I had to play something else like king d7 or some bishop c8 to cut his rook off. I missed not rook e5, but I missed that if like bishop d5 and this, I'm dropping the f7 pawn. Okay, I was very tired around this point. Not to make it's not an excuse, it's just the truth. Eventually, I saw that I could play this weird stuff. I mean, of course, I was aware that at this point I'm not winning at all, and the game is probably just gonna be a draw. But honestly, I was so fed up with the game that I was just like, let's just freaking play, and if it's a draw, it's a freaking draw, whatever. I mean, another thing I missed, I cannot take, at least if I wanted to win, because now I cannot defend my h3 pawn, which is the only thing that gives me winning chances. So I made this crap up, and finally he blunders with rook f1. So yeah, I'm gonna win this game. Rook f1, in case you were wondering. Like it was such a roller coaster, but yeah, rook f1 finally blunders. Because now this, and he missed that I can come around with the bishop and take. He was still holding with king d4, yeah? King d4, and something like, I thought g5, yeah, g5 should hold. I cannot take on pain of rook f1, so this is just a draw. Okay, so rook f1 happens, and he even had the courtesy of giving me a rook in the end. Take, check, and this is how the game finished. We were both completely exhausted, as you can tell. The whole game was a mess. Not well played by any means, but there were some fun moments, and I feel like I managed to find some funny kind of ideas to put pressure on him. I mean, it's a criminal sin that I wasn't able to that I blundered this c3 pawn here earlier, and then I didn't see this bishop d3. This is like 1500 kind of misses, but it happens, and we got the win, which is the most important. So this was rounds 1 and 2. Today is round 3, and I'm gonna try to make more regular recaps on the tournament. Again, I'll be streaming all the rounds, so you can check that on my channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.